So, yes, we are live now. Good evening and a very warm welcome to all the doctors who have joined today's webinar. I am Neetu Abraham, Community Manager at Medisage e-learning. At Medisage, we empower doctors with the right blend of knowledge and technology to enhance clinical practice and patient outcomes. With AI transforming healthcare, we are excited to introduce Sage AI, a medical grade AI built exclusively for doctors. This entire webinar is co-powered by Sage AI and it is now freely available on Medisage app, offering reliable evidence-based support anytime and anywhere. On behalf of Medisage, I'm delighted to welcome you all to Sexual Health Ki Pathshala episode 8 to SexMed Connect, where today we will be discussing on the topic female sexual interest or arousal disorder. With this, I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Shama Sultana ma'am for further proceedings. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. On behalf of SexMed Connect, I warmly welcome you all to today's webinar, that is Sexual Health Ki Pathshala episode 8, on the topic female sexual interest or arousal disorder. SexMed Connect is a dedicated academic platform created for gynecologists with a vision of promoting excellence in sexual medicine and sexual health practice. This is initiated by Dr. Neeraj Jadhav Sir, President, Dr. Apurva Datta Sir, Vice President, Dr. Shama Sultana, and Dr. Naisar Ki ma'am. And this is SexMed Connect functions as an active community of clinicians committed to learning, sharing and experiences and improving patient care. One of our key initiatives is a WhatsApp discussion group exclusively for gynecologists, where members engage in daily discussions on real life sexual health case scenarios, clinical challenges, evidence-based management strategies, and recent advances in the field. The platform encourages peer learning and expert guidance and addresses topics that are often overlooked in routine practice. In addition, SexMed Connect actively shares educational content, clinical pearls, expert interviews, case discussions, and webinar updates through our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube platforms. I encourage all the participants to follow our social media channels and become part of this growing academic movement dedicated to advancing sexual health education. Today's webinar focuses on female sexual interest arousal disorder, one of the most common yet under-recognized female sexual dysfunctions. Despite its significant impact on quality of life and relationships, it frequently remains undiscussed in clinical settings. Understanding and addressing such concerns is an essential part of comprehensive women's health care. For this special session, we have our faculty, Dr. Anita Sham ma'am. I request my co-moderator to introduce Dr. Anita Sham ma'am. Ma'am,
Thank you, Dr.
Ready?
I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Anita Sham ma'am. Dr. Anita Sham ma'am, she's an integrative holistic psychiatrist, clinical sexologist, relationship and intimacy coach, and energy healing practitioner with over 2 decades of experience. She specializes in general psychiatry and sexual medicine, 2 fields that often remain surrounded by cultural taboos yet require compassionate and evidence-based care. Her practices focuses on holistic psychiatric and integrative wellness services aimed at improving overall well-being rather than merely treating the symptoms. She combines conventional medical treatments with complementary therapies through an integrative psychiatry approach. A diplomat of American's Board of Sexology and international faculty member, she has contributed extensively to education, research, and advocacy in sexual health. Her mission is to promote mental, emotional, and sexual wellness while helping individuals lead healthier and more fulfilling lives. Now, may I request Dr. Anita Sham ma'am to enlighten all of us on today's very unsaid topic, that is female sexual interest arousal disorder.
We are not able to hear you, Dr. Anita. Your voice is not coming.
No, ma'am, we can't hear you. You just connected with the headset, no? That's
Now?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So good morning, everybody. And I know it's almost evening, right? It's night in India. So good evening to everybody. Good morning from Boston. My name is Dr. Anita Sham, and I am delighted. I'm truly delighted to be here to give a presentation on one of my favorite topics, which is female interest and arousal. I want to thank Dr. Jadhav, the organizer, for thinking about me, for giving me this opportunity to come and share my knowledge with you all. And of course, welcome to all the participants, the delegate, to take time off their busy practices and to be here to learn something. And I hope and I promise it's not going to be a boring session. We're going to go from this webinar absolutely empowered and ready to treat our patients who come to us with sexual problems. So let me share my screen. I know my PC has been giving me a little bit of issue, but I hope so. Can you guys see me? Can you see my slides now?
Yes, make it full screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my dear. And I want to turn the audio on because I have some fun videos which I'm going to play for you all. But let me
Yesterday only I had one patient. Now what happens is that generally what I have seen is कि females, they would not generally come up with this disorder, but if you're very much compliant or if you're very much conversative with the couple, the husband will come and tell you कि she is having this problem. So yesterday only I had one patient who is basically my personal assistant. The husband, he came to me and he's around he should be around 50-55 years, and he has completed his family. Now his kids are in the college. Now his thing is that whenever he goes back home, his family stays in Delhi, and whenever he goes back home, his wife is totally non-cooperative, uncooperative, and he's like, what should I do? Because she's not ready to accept that she wants to take treatment. So how should be my approach? So in this case, how would you go about it?
Ma'am, for this, I think
Females are not very much.
ma'am, you should go for like male and female both couple therapy. You have to
In this
make
case,
them understand.
yeah,
And
in this case,
sexual
now in this case, the scenario is the husband is with
Hello.
me in Orissa, wife is in Delhi. TM. So the couple counseling is not possible.
Ma'am, you can connect with like husband is here, so in front of him only, you can connect with video call and you can counsel her also. So you have to like know about her from her side also, like what is the reality. Whatever husband told you is done, but you have to see viewpoint of female also, like actually what is the history from her side. Then both combined, you take history and ask about couple therapy and sex therapy. So that is the theme.
Yeah, so I think couple counseling is very, very important. Instead of giving single management or just prescribing the medicines, couple counseling is the key takeaway message whenever such patients come to you for female sexual arousal disorder. So
then one more thing, Dr. Shama ma'am was asking like what patient is coming in your opinion, who is approaching. So like female patients are coming in OPD, that time they don't have like they won't tell they are having sexual problem. But they give so vague symptoms like they are having tiredness, their mood is not like they don't have work to work, they don't have mood to work, they are feeling very lazy, and they give so many vague symptoms. But when you ask like what is about your sexual life and do you have any problem in having sex, then they will tell like yes, this is the problem, and that will correlate with this all vague symptoms. Like I saw like that patients, they come with these vague symptoms, but they are having actual problem with intercourse or other with low desire and this thing. Restlessness
Yes.
syndrome.
Yes, in cases of many, if they have vaginitis or they have vaginismus, these such kind of women also, due to they are in a fear that they will have a pain, so they will also feel like decreased interest during this intercourse. If a husband is interested, they will be feeling like no, not now. We will have next time or like that. So in those cases also, the mere cause of vaginismus can be treated, and also vaginitis can be cured. So some patients like doctor have completely lost interest in sex since starting fertility treatment. They are saying like, is this physiological, psychological or relational? And what would you say?
So it's like because of infertility treatment, they are having like that calendar type of intercourse schedule. And because of that, husbands are also feeling performance anxiety, and patients are so fed up with that female partner. Like they have like only this time that partner is coming, he forgotten intimacy, he forgotten what his wife wants except kids. So they are like the relationship is the problem. There it started relationship problem, intimacy and love problem, and because of that, this bond is only for like having a kid. They are getting together, but not their relationship and married life. What they want actually relationship. So that is
Usually,
I
it is
think I
multifactorial.
think in this there is a negative mindset also because they are not conceiving since so many years. So we have to first take care of that negative part. We have to give positive counseling. So we have to first rule out all the other factors and convince them and counsel them. Ki, see, you will be able to conceive. So and we have to rule out all these things. So I think it is again a holistic approach wherein psychological factor
Correct.
needs to be considered because they are actually in depression because they are not able to conceive since so many years or months, whatever they are planning
Yes, it
for.
should be a multifactorial, that is fertility treatment, stress, hormonal changes, and also anxiety and
And
relationship strain
moreover,
often
the
coexist.
hormonal treatment, it is itself a very taxing part. It is socially also taxing, mentally taxing, psychologically taxing. So this part has to be taken into consideration whenever the patient is undergoing infertility treatment.
So, what
what
we
I
need to ask
feel
them, additional history, what can we ask them in spite of knowing infertility treatment is going on?
we should ask like how is your bond and like how you are spending time together except like and how many times you are having intercourse except about this infertility timing, and before that how was your relationship before this taking treatment, before that how was your bond, how was your sexual life, that is very important for them. And even what I am feeling before taking
I think
infertility
Anita
treatment,
ma'am has
every
come.
infertility center should have sexual therapist or sexual expert who is giving them like that sexual therapy. That is also very important because they are not asking about sexual history.
I think Anita ma'am has come and she's trying to put on the slideshow.
Yes, I
Ma'am,
am. And I'm so
welcome
embarrassed.
back,
But
ma'am.
Yeah,
Welcome back.
Let's start, ma'am.
yes, you can hear me clearly. You can see the
Yes,
slides
ma'am.
Yes,
clearly.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. So, yes, everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining and thank you for staying. And I apologize for this delay. But without any further
Absolutely
delay,
fine,
let's
ma'am.
start talking about female desire, sexual interest, and arousal disorders. Today, we are going to understand what female sexual desire, interest, and arousal are, and what are the disorders, how we can diagnose, how we can investigate, and how do we manage these patients. This is me. We've heard a lot about me. I have no disclaimers except these slides, and this presentation has been made for Dr. Rao's committee or this organization, and it's strictly for educational purposes. I have no financial commitment contract with the organization. Those are my few disclaimers. But yes, the roadmap will be right from introduction till the treatment. We are going to learn about desire, interest, and arousal disorders. So introduction begins. Here are the introduction. We all have some time or the other either ourselves faced a sexual problem or we've seen patients who have come to us for help and they are suffering from some problem in their intimate lives. The latest consensus, the latest prevalence is 1 out of every 10 female must or will be suffering with one sexual dysfunction. The rates are pretty scary for men. So we should be proud that at least it's 1 in 10 women. I think nobody should suffer with sexual problems, especially when there is so much to do, so much to help our patients. We all know female sexuality is not as simple as male sexuality because there is an interplay, there is a complex interconnection with the physiology, with the psychology, the anatomy, neurochemistry, hormone, pharmacological, socio-cultural factors. All these factors help a female to have a balanced sexual functioning, and if anything goes wrong, she suffers from sexual dysfunction. Classification, let's not go deep into it because it's not what we are here for. And me personally, as a practitioner, I really do not focus more on diagnosis or labeling patients, because I feel our patients are much more than diagnosis. They are here to get help, not get diagnosed. But yes, we have female sexual interest arousal disorder, and these can be just the desire or interest disorder. This can be purely arousal. There are two types of arousal, which is genital, physiological, or combined, right? And there's also psychological. But the DSM has been really kind for us. The Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, which is used by psychiatrists to diagnose people, to code them, that classification organization has been very kind, and they have clubbed together interest and arousal because it was getting a little confusing. More than that, we believe that they were combined together because for female sexuality, it is a very complex phenomena. There is an interplay of desire as arousal, till a female is ready to be intimate. So, one of the disorders which is not talked about commonly is the persistent genital arousal disorder. You, as OBGYNs, surely have been seeing this lately very commonly, and it is probably at a rise because of a lot of, maybe people have started knowing this problem, and unfortunately, a lot of gynecologists do not understand or do not know how to diagnose it. But yes, persistent genital arousal disorder, a very discomforting problem. Females are distressed with the arousability or the sensation they feel in their genitals. DSM-5 says that there is lack or reduced in the interest, sexual interest, or the thoughts, fantasies. Female do not want to initiate or even do not want to reciprocate. Okay, there is completely absence or diminished in sexual interest, arousal, response, pleasure, present almost 75% to almost 100% all the time, and it has to persist for 6 months, causing significant distress among with the patient and in the relationship. Said that, if a patient comes to you in less than 6 months and says, you know what, I've been facing issues with my interest, with my arousal, we should treat them. We should not wait for the diagnosis, but certainly we need to work on understanding the pathophysiology. So again, 6 monthly, causing severe distress and not associated with any mental disorders and if there are consequences with relationship, we go deeper into that. But we have specifiers. This particular female has never felt the interest or arousal that could be lifelong, or it could be acquired, which is after a phase of normal sexual functioning, she now has this problem. This female can suffer from a problem which is generalized, present all the time, or it is present only in certain situations, right? If she goes to her in-laws house, she faces no interest, no arousability, but when she is on a vacation, she might feel the desire to be intimate with her partner. It can be mild, moderate, or severe form. Mild is something she can work, she can be aroused. Moderate is iffy, but severe is, oh my god, no, no, no. And this is ICD-10, again, a diagnostic tool. Diagnostic, we said the way we have these manuals, nothing to be really worried about. This is a very important slide. Now, why this becomes important is many a times we do not know, we kind of suffer with myths that females should be spontaneously ready just like men to have sex, but no. Women usually respond to sexual clues or sexual stimuli. Not necessarily they have to be ready all the time, generalized. It's situational, right? It can be situational, it can be subjective to certain stimuli, triggers, conditions. Genital arousal, subjective, physiological, psychological arousal, they all are different and they need to work together for somebody to really experience good sex. Lubrication is not equivalent to consent. Lubrication is not equivalent that she is ready to have sex. She is physiologically a reaction, and maybe sometime later, in maybe whenever I teach again to you guys, I can teach you why these two are different, whether it is men or women. Once they are physiologically aroused, even if somebody comes and touches you in a erotic way, or maybe touches your breast, or touches the vulva, or for men if they touch, they are accidentally touched on the penis, there is an instant arousal which is a physiological response, not necessarily this person is interested to be intimate. So remember this, it's a very important slide. And of course we know there is an orchestra being constantly played in our entire body, where we have the dopamine, which is the excitatory neurotransmitter, to the serotonin, and this information about why neurotransmitters, hormones are important is because we use them for our treatment, right? We all know about the excitatory response, we all know about the inhibitory response. Excitatory is which gives a positive enforcement for somebody to be involved in sex. It can be neurotransmitters, it can be hormones, it can be a spousal response, or a partner response. Whereas we have inhibitory stuff, which inhibits, which causes negative enforcement on us, and somebody doesn't want to be engaged in sex. In terms of hormones, we talk about things like dopamine, which is for excitement and desire. We talk about norepinephrine, which enhances the arousability, orgasm. At the same time, we talk about the serotonergic system, which can be inhibitory, and that's why we talk about SSRIs, which are used for some treatments as well. Epidemiology, I just told you, very common condition. One of the very common condition is the interest and arousal disorder. This wonderful study, which was a longitudinal study, found that 7.4% women among the age of 65 to 65 and above suffered with sexual desire and interest disorder. 12.3% of women between the age of 45 and 64 suffered with this problem. Younger women, the 18 to 44, had a prevalence of 8.9%. Now, sexual desire with or without distress, where you club this whole thing in a big bucket, is 38.7% of women suffer with this type of problem. That is overall sexual problems. Okay. Now, as the age advances, right, the sexual dysfunction really increases. We all know perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. This problem increases because of a hormonal condition. But interestingly, the distress decreases because maybe now that's not the focus in their life. Life focus changes after certain age. So that's why it has been seen that prevalence of low libido increases with age, but the prevalence of distress associated with the low libido declines. People get used to it probably. Yeah. So, what could be the various reasons why women suffer with this type of problems? So that is pathophysiology. How do we diagnose and investigate? Let's start with this wonderful video, and then maybe I can come back to the audience and ask. So here is a nice video.
क्या आज संडे है
So I want to come up to my lovely participants. Can anybody volunteer to say, what did you just notice? What did we just notice in this video?
Samad, is that the? Sorry, I missed
Is somebody going to volunteer and tell me what did you just see in this video?
That she has a interest is lower and
Wonderful. We just noticed something very interesting, that she has a partner who is not concerned about whether she's enjoying this intimate time or not. And possibly this partner is only concerned about his pleasure, is also suffering from premature ejaculation. Such a female would come to you, or the partner would come to you and tell you that, you know, wife, my wife is never ready. She's never interested in having sex with me. And we now know, looking at this video, that there could be so many other factors playing. He is not enough for her. He's not able to satisfy her. He is not able to see at her pleasure. And more than that, she is never aroused. She is never aroused. She is never having desire. So this is a wonderful flow chart which helps us to kind of classify sexual dysfunction into what could be the various pathologies. It could be organic cause, it could be physical cause, or it could be psychiatric cause. Of course, we have organic cause where we have altercation in the genital. We could be hormonal problem. Genital could be biological issues, right? There could be something physically wrong, pathologically wrong. There could be some hormonal problems. There could be other medical disorders. There could be some hormonal disorder. Female could be when we talk about psychiatric, there could be mental illnesses, depression, anxiety, antidepressant, anxiolytic. All these affect the sexual function. They basically hit on the arousal. And once the arousal is deterred, because as we move on, you learn desire is not just biological. There's a much more emotional and psychological component involved. So with all these medications, the arousability is hampered, which goes back and hits and affects the desire, right? So nice chart to basically understand what could be the various pathophysiology. Now, this is the beautiful triangle which is called the relationship triangle. And if you master this in your clinical practice, you would be able to pretty much crack into any sexual dysfunction, whether it is a man or a female. So, in this particular video, we saw there are two people involved in this intimate relationship. One is the male and one is the female. So, if we keep our patient here, partner one, and she comes to you with low sex desire, or she is never aroused, or she is suffering from pain because she is not aroused, boom, we put her partner into the second bucket, completely focusing and taking a detailed history of this person. Will get to know if this person has any problems, right? And then we also want to take a detailed history on the relationship. So this is called a triad. Whether it is your interventions or whether it is your pathophysiological diagnosis and investigation, this triangle helps to understand if purely this patient's issues we have to look into, or we need to involve the partner, or we need to go deeper into understanding how is the dynamics in this relationship. So relationship triangle is one thing which is very crucial. Second is, there are 5 aspects where things can go wrong and the person suffers from sexual dysfunction. It could be the biological factors, it could be the psychological factors, it could be the social factors, spiritual factors, cultural factors, and sexual factors. Maybe this female is suffering with sexual dysfunction or some type of sexual issues or sexual trauma. That's why she has low libido and interest. Or if the husband has some biological problems, has some psychological problems, has a social upbringing, has been brought into the good boy syndrome, that causes sexual dysfunction, which is secondarily causing sexual problem to our patient. And it is also the dynamics of this relationship. Maybe they are just two people, they have lovely desire, they have lovely arousability, but the relationship is not strong. They don't talk, they don't communicate, they're constantly arguing. Boom, it affects their sexual functioning. And this is a sexual response cycle. And all these sexual response cycles say one thing is, what is the incentive? The incentive motivates a person to be involved in an intimate relationship where she gets pleasure, where she has her pleasure is appreciated and respected. So whether you go with any of these sexual response cycle, the goal should be how was the experience in the previous interaction, sexual interaction, and that would be a motivator for somebody to be involved in another physical, intimate, private relationship. So, take home messages, guys. Please, let's focus more on sexual pleasure satisfaction, which is going to motivate somebody rather than asking, hey, did you get orgasm? Did you get orgasm? Okay. Sexual desire doesn't always have to come before sexual activity. A female can be aroused with love, affection, touch, physiological arousal, which takes her to a psychological arousal, and boom, she's interested in him. That becomes a trigger to have sex. External factors such as dynamics of the relationship, intimacy, weighing the rewards, motivation, incentives, all plays a very crucial role. Pleasure based, one should focus on pleasure satisfaction, not on what goals we have, right? So, no, no, no. And shift the focus to the patient, and equally involve the partner in the therapy. Communication is the key, inside and outside, so the relationship dynamics matters. So when we once we put together all these dynamics, we look into the patient, we put this patient's biopsychosocial spiritual sexual model in this bucket. We study the sexual response of this patient, of the partner, and how this relationship is kind of controlling these two people. Now, the principles of clinical assessment in female sexual concerns should be we assess deeply the psychosocial knowledge assessment is required. A lot of times we suffer with females who have incredible myths, right? Incredible myths, right from penetration scariness, right from feeling that sex is dirty, unhygienic. Trauma sensitive interview is very important. If this patient suffered from any abuse, any trauma, even it could be psychological traumas. Culturally safe language, the good girl syndrome. How does she perceive sex and being intimate with her partner? Does she perceive it as, hey, this is a relationship where we are equally involved in our sexual pleasures, or this is my duty? Oh my God. Avoidance of premature diagnosis. We should avoid any premature diagnosis because there's so much still to learn about our patient. And functional formulation, not abstract. That means take a detailed history, pin down to what could be the causes, and start formulating your interventions. Please do not go for, as we said, premature diagnosis, because differentiating patterns of low sexual desire could be low desire due to various factors, the partner factor, the relationship factor, or the whole dynamics of the family. It could be a suppressed desire. Damn, I do not feel pleasure. If I'm not feeling pleasure, why do I need to be involved in a physical relationship then? Is it context dependent, that only if if there are situations which permits me to explore and experience this pleasure, I am going to be involved? That is context dependent. A trauma related shutdown. I've got hurt so much that I'm just done and I'm going to shut down. I'm not going to be interested in sex. So it is trauma related, just shut down. Now, mapping desire and arousal over timing. Study their desire over time. How was the desire long term acquired? What has been the various triggers? What has been the factors which has led to this shutdown? Or is she enough aroused? Is she enough pampered? Is there more time spent in connecting with her what she wants? And study the shutdown markers. What happens that she just does the partner come home drunk? Does the partner smoke a lot? Is he not hygienic? Is he very smelly? You need to know what are the trigger markers. Is he very abusive? How does he react when she says no? How does he react when she says, I'm not done, I'm not having fun? So, all these are shutdown markers. Okay. We just talked about this pathophysiology, that the female genital is richly innervated by by nerve fibers, whether we are talking about the sensory touch, the pleasurable touch, how the afferent goes to the brain, processes this stimuli, and a response is created. In your leisure time, you can certainly go ahead. We talked about the neurotransmitters, excitatory, inhibitory, and also, mind you, a lot of research has been done on the testosterone level of female, how they can affect their desire and arousability. That's why nowadays you can certainly give a small dose of hormone to female who are not even perimenopausal, because the decline of the hormones begin right, maybe later late 20s or early 30s, and that's why FDA is promoting use of hormones to keep their functionality at least in equilibrium. Another perspective of female sexual response is understanding what desire is. Just few seconds ago, we were talking about what exactly is desire. Desire has three major components. That's why when we talk mainly about neurotransmitters and hormones, with female, desire works in a very different way. So one is biological, which is a drive, which is the libido, and the other aspect is the cognitive component and the motivation, that is the incentives. That's the pleasure. The component which is the most valuable, even if your drive and your hormones are top notch, if the beliefs, the values, the erotic script are negative, no matter what are your hormonal level, she is not going to be interested in having sex. She is not. If she has negative schemas of sex, if her erotic script is, oh my god, it's dirty, it's hygienic, it's painful. Motivation, he doesn't, nobody cares about my pleasure. I in fact get hurt. It feels like I'm being used. If those are things, if I am not really getting anything out of it, why do I need to get involved? So before you bump up the medications, before you pump up the hormones, ask them about the cognitive component and the motivation. Beautiful video. Let's look at this.
तुम्हारे साथ स्कूटर पे बिताए वो 22 मिनट मेरी जिंदगी के सबसे खूबसूरत 22 मिनट थे। मैं अपनी पूरी लाइफ तुम्हारे साथ स्कूटर पे बिता सकता हूँ। थम्स गया है। पता है, तुम रोज दुल्हन के कॉस्ट्यूम में स्कूटर पर बैठकर मेरे सपनों में आती हो। घूंघट की जगह अपना हेलमेट उठाती हो और मुझे किस करने मेरे पास आती हो, लेकिन वो किस हो नहीं पाती यार। क्यों? क्योंकि नाक बीच में आ जाती है और फिर मैं जाग जाता हूँ।
Okay, guys. What a lovely, hilarious video. This is exactly what women want. Women do not want straight penetration. Women do not want immediate getting the clothes off. They want love. They want pampering. They want humor. They want that connection that this person really thinks about me in an intimate way. And that brings more arousability than, hey, you know what? Let's have sex. But the various motivation associated with desire and satisfaction, it could be the love, the commitment, the self-esteem. What am I getting in this relationship? Expression. It could be a good way to connect with their partners, right? It could be a good way to make them feel, hey, you know what? I am desirable. I am important. That is self-esteem. Resources. Hey, maybe you know what? This is the way I can get my relationship going on. Pleasure based and experience seeking. So these could be the various motivational factors which can promote and increase desire and arousability. Now, we all know that desire or sexual dysfunction can be affected in many ways. We just talked about it. Medications, be menopause, pregnancy, breastfeeding, lifestyle, various sexual problems. The patient and their partners, we have psychological and relationship issues. But again, how do we forget our dear diabetes? How do we forget about urinary tract infection, vascular complications, which affect even the arousability, the blood flow through the vulva, which causes engorgement, neuropathies, neurological disorders, hormonal problems, psychological anxiety, depression, body image issues, rejection, sexual performance anxieties, depression, socio-cultural factors. Everything and anything can affect sexual functioning. This was a nice study which was done on female sexual disorder, especially in the Asian, South Asian population, and they found out that the male dominance, especially when the focus is so gender biased, women in general do not feel the freedom of sexual experience or exploration. So changing the dynamics, not male oriented, but the female oriented, can also help. So, this was a lovely study. If you guys have any time, please look at it. How male centric pleasure, male centric society can really suppress the female expression of sexuality. So, here, this is another beautiful video. So, my lovely audience, I want somebody to volunteer and tell me what did you see in this particular video?
I think it is about non-verbal communication.
Lovely. Oh my God, you banged it, Dr. Jadhav. It is non-verbal communication, a feeling of connection and security and trust. So, women, if you dig deeper into any female who comes to you, even yourself, when you want to be involved in a physical, sexual, intimate relationship and you talk about pleasure, do you trust this person? Do you feel connected to the person? Do you feel secured in this relationship? Is going to matter a lot. If you find somebody who's constantly in that power struggle and sex play, trying to hold sex as a power to control you, and mind you, women can also do that. Women can withhold sex to show their power that, hey, you know what? I am not open anymore. This is my control. When that dynamics happen, it is definitely going to ruin this, not only the relationship, but also the sexuality or having pleasure. So this particular video says that, hey, you know what? I trust you. I trust you to stand there. I trust you and I embrace the experience I'm going to have with you. You show me love and I come back rebound with it. So we talked about this, the negative experience, the frustration, hopelessness which happens in a relationship that can affect the dynamics. It has been seen that longer duration of a relationship, the greater chance of sexual dissatisfaction, but less distress. Probably they get used to it. Probably they're like, hey, this is life. But good communication and healthy relationship can reduce the distress. The type of attachment, a distress attachment, can definitely score negative on relationship and sexual functioning. Whereas a security, a trust, a commitment, the assurance that, hey, you know what, this is going to be safe for me when I am going to let myself open, is going to cause miracles in a relationship. We have medical history. We talked about this, a list of medication which can affect desire, arousal, cause pain. So here is a big list. Take a printout, work on it. You might get some, because if you're going to use these medications, right? Remember, we talked about desire, how there are three components. So even if we look at all these medications, think that it is the desire, it's actually the arousal. The arousal gets affected, which causes in turn reaction to causing desire disorders. But solely medication do not cause direct hit on the desire, because you have other components to work with. They affect the arousability, which indirectly affects the desire, which affects the arousability in circle. But over the counter medications are also there, right from antihistaminics to a lot of other contraceptive pills. We have an imbalance between the excitatory and the inhibitory factors. So if there is more inhibition, of course, it's going to affect by Dr. Perlman. This was designed by Dr. Michael Perlman, and this is a dual control or the tipping model. And various the three main domains which influence our relationship, personal behavior, and the medical and hormonal factors. So, hmm, good. This is a nice physiological, psychophysiological model of hypoactive sexual dysfunction, which is called as a dual control of interest and response. But low desire may be the result of insufficient excitatory process. Remember, we talked, she is not aroused enough, or increase in the inhibition or sexual interest. Inhib- I, Inhibition of the sexual interest or response may be an adaptive response. I'm going to give you an example what this particular thing means. Long time ago, I I had a patient, a couple patient, where the husband brought his wife saying that she's never interested. She's always saying no. She's always in the worst mood when I come to the house and I want to connect with her. I want to make love to her. And when we went deeper into the history, the husband always walks in drunk. He's smelly. He's yucky. He is in an abusive mood. So what she learned is like, hey, you know what? This is my adaptive response. I'm just not going to indulge into any conversations. So this is an adaptive response. Now imagine a husband walks in the house. Of course he's tired, he's going to be smelly, but he is not drunk. He is not in the worst physiological mood. Okay, he then goes take a shower. He comes closer to his wife, or even if he just comes closer to his, that will be an adaptive response. That hey, you know what? I come to somebody who is very safe has come to me, and I want to connect. So these are positive adaptive response, and we have negative adaptive response. As soon as we change the dynamics of him not drinking and coming home, maybe connecting with his wife, wrap up of the whole day, having their own intimate time, and then getting to alcohol, change the whole dynamic, right? So sometimes you got to go deeper into the history, like what is causing this whole trigger. The various scales and questionnaires which are available for you all to use if this is not your forte, this is not your niche, but we have this beautiful Plicit model. Okay, this is going to take a lot of time if I start explaining, but Plicit model starts with a physician who gives permission to a patient that hey, you know what, I'm ready to listen. If you have any sexual problems, if you want to discuss about your intimate relationship, so you give permission. After that, when the person starts talking, you start giving limited information. You don't want to give a hell lot of information and scare this patient, but give limited information. If there is a sexual dysfunction, or if that requires a specific suggestion, you can give specific suggestions, or you can refer to a sexual med consultant, right? Or you could go and give them guidance about, hey, why don't you go and read about this? Lastly, if you are skilled, you give intensive therapy. This is Plicit model, one of the world's widely used model for interventions and treatments. But we do have other models which are, this is called the Female Sexual Functioning Assessment Questionnaire. We have the Desire Screeners. We have Sexual Function Index. We have Distress Index, and also the revised smaller version. This is 13 items, but I think the revised one is much smaller. And then we have these whole evaluation tools, which is the Brief Index of Sexual Functioning. We have the interview models. We have scales, distress, and sexual function. These all are easily available. If this is not your niche, you can always reach out and you can use these questionnaires if this is not your forte. Because I know, since we are not trained, we come from such a socio-cultural background that we cannot openly talk about sex, but these tools are easily available and you can certainly use them. Sexual satisfaction scale is a wonderful scale which is used for men and women. And again, this is This is just given, a printout is given to the patient, they can fill it up and you can score them. The end goal of any sexual sex therapy or relationship therapy you're giving is for their good marital relationship and sex life management. Guys, this is I want everybody to focus on this video, because whatever I can teach you, whatever I teach throughout the world, this particular slide comprises of everything. It is a nutshell of what exactly relationship, marital and sex therapy is. So good luck, and please.
सेक्स सिर्फ बच्चा पैदा करने के लिए करते हैं।
शादी की है, फैमिली प्लानिंग तो करेंगे ना।
प्लानिंग कैसे? ऐसे मैकेनिकल सेक्स करके? थोड़ा तो प्यार करो दिमाग का, थोड़ा फोन प्ले करो। मेरे भी कुछ डिजायर्स हैं, हमेशा सीधा शुरू हो जाते हैं और खत्म होते ही।
Okay, so here this starts with
सेक्स सिर्फ बच्चा पैदा करने
the first thing. What this is a beautiful video from a movie called Mrs. G, and this is an intimate time where the husband is all about, hey, you know what, I want to have sex, and she's frustrated in life. She's not having pleasure. She is not respected in this relationship. She says she feels she's got no play in the sexual intimate times which they have, and more than that, she suffers with pain. So here she says that, do you think we want to have kids by having mechanical sex where there's no connection? Right? Firstly, she says that I don't feel anything. In fact, I feel pain. Right? Can't you just see that I'm not having pleasure? At least do some foreplay. Have some connection with me. Don't just start. Right? So this comprises of everything what you would want to work with your patient. Any treatment should be sex positive. None of your biases should come in your clinical interventions or your treatment. It should be absolutely purely sex positive, because you are not here to pass judgments. I had a patient yesterday, unmarried couple, and they were discussing about BDSM to me. And I'm like, they're like, ma'am, do you think, are you going to get upset at us? I said, no, that's not my position to get upset. You want to try BDSM, that is you and your partner's decision. I'm here to support in whatever ways I can. So sex positive, non-judgmental, open-minded. Focus on pleasure, not the process, but on the pleasure. What is connecting both of you? How are you doing this journey together? It should be client-centered. It should not be what you want. It should be what the patient wants. It should have goals. What is our goal we want to achieve? I want to reduce pain. I want to have sex. I want to feel. I want to have the pleasure. It should be result driven. So if your interventions do not give result, your patients are going to go away. So the overall goal of sex therapy is to create or resort to a mutual sexual comfort, satisfaction, and pleasure. So remember what your goals are. Now comes first step of any therapy is psychosexual education. So when people come and say, ma'am, could just give us some medicine, give us some hormones, and that's where you start teaching them that it's not all about hormones. It's about your erotic script, your cognitive components, your motivation, your intimacy. You also have to teach them about what is desire discrepancy. There is nothing called as, oh, you know what, he doesn't want to have sex because he's got low desire. I think I have more desire. I'm hypersexual, where those terminologies have been scrapped long time ago, because how can you say somebody feels more hungry, somebody feels less hungry, right? You need to come to a balance. Like when you talk about desire discrepancy, that is bound to happen with two people who are completely different people coming together. One might like something, one might not like something. One might like Chinese food and one might like butter chicken. So we as professionals need to come together. We need to bring these two people together and learn to adjust to each other's liking. If you cannot adjust to each other's liking, at least be supportive of each other's liking. Do not pass negative comment that she always wants to have sex, or he always wants to have sex, or he never wants to have sex. I think he is impotent, or I think he doesn't want to have sex at all. But yes, try to see what is happening, detail history and matching up. And if again not your forte, refer these people to a sexologist or a sexual medicine expert. Again, excitatory and inhibitory process go deeper into these processing and help to reduce the inhibition and increase the excitation. Specific management involves the following stages: helping the women develop a positive attitude about herself, that is body image and self acceptance. Improve the communication, communion and communication between the two people. Sensate focus is all about being mindful, feeling the pleasure, and this can be done with various techniques, starting with cognitive behavioral techniques, systematic desensitization if she's fearful or has some pain, individual and couples therapy, so they both start working together, self masturbation or directed masturbation, mutual masturbation, communication skill enhancement techniques. A mainstay of sex therapy is sensate focus, which is non demand, sensual, loving touching to each other, decreasing the inhibitions and increase the excitability. CBT and mindfulness techniques have worked wonderfully well when the focus is exclusively on pleasure and satisfaction. We have pelvic floor therapists who work on hypertonicity of the pelvic floor, helps the pelvic floor to relax, and this can help the female to have pleasurable sex. We have vaginal penetration modalities or accessories. Again, working on the relationship, mitigating the sexual desire discrepancies. Emotional focus therapy is all about focusing on each other's emotions, what dynamics they bring in this relationship, which will help them to have better relationship. Cognitive behavioral therapy is found to be effective with people suffering with low sexual desire. Mindfulness based interventions which has been shown to be effectively treat the low sexual desire arousability and also acquired anorgasmia, and directed masturbation where the focus is pleasure is in my hand, pleasure is in the hand for both of us as well, so that is mutual and self masturbation. Lifestyle modification is the keystone of any sexuality. Mind you, when I see patients, especially men as well, my first go to is please fix your lifestyle, because as much as I want to give you meds, if you don't fix your lifestyle, I cannot help you much. I can keep on bumping my medication, but if you are 100 kilograms, if you are almost 200 pounds, how am I going to help you with your erection? Same is with the females. As much as I'll tell you, weight weight increase or overweight in female do not affect their sexual functioning, but their perception of their bodies get affected, right? So she doesn't feel that I'm attractive anymore, but does that mean she doesn't want to have sex? Is a completely different discussion we can have some other time. But a healthy diet, routine exercise, avoiding smoking, drugs, alcohol, balancing the glycemic and the metabolic indexes helps a long way. Omega 3 fatty acids have been generally very beneficial in general well being, improvement of the libido. Uh, any type of menstrual and hormonal problem should be treated. Okay, cardio, cardio aerobic and sex. Testosterone does not tend to increase following resistance training. Like I have really patients who come to me and tell them, ma'am, we do weight training, strength training. Of course, but yes, once you do cardiovascular exercises, those have much higher effect in helping your hormones and helping you function better than as compared to you going and lifting 100 kilograms. Same is with the women, guys. Nothing has been changed. Women doing cardiovascular activities like aerobics, Zumba, swimming, where there is a lot of movement, helps them to secrete happy hormones, dopamine, all those beautiful hormones, and they feel good and motivated. That also helps in the vaginal health. Exercises help in maintain the pelvic floor mobility, mental well-being, and overall well-being in the women is affected. So that's why aerobic cardiovascular based activity, dancing, movement exercises are very important. relationship between exercise timing and increased sexual arousal in women. So this particular exercise or this particular study was done, and they were measuring the physiological arousal in response to erotic films at either 5, 10, or 30 minutes post exercises. So again, we are talking about cardiovascular cardio exercises. At both 15 and 30 minutes post exercise, there was increase in the physiological arousal to the erotic movies as compared to people who were sedentary and who did not do any exercises. So no significant increase immediately following exercise, but yes, after maybe 15 to 30 minutes. And this is again, as I told you, once we exercise, we have some movement, dance, walking, swimming, tennis, they secrete hormones which automatically makes us feel good. Pharmacological interventions, quite a few, and I have to admit that most of them do not work the way we want them to work. So it cannot be like, hey, I started this patient on estrogen therapy, and now in a postmenopausal or a menopausal woman, she's going to have desire. It doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen, because as I told you, desire and arousal has have different component as just compared to one biological component. In fact, you might have the best biology going on, best physiology going on, but if the other two components are not strong, no matter what you do, you're not going to have this female enjoy sex. But again, you can have low physiology, low hormones, and these two components, beautiful relationship, right? Love sex, have positive image, positive schema about sex. This can be overshadowed by these two strong components. So this is available, and I'm going to tell you about the systemic estrogen, which can be oral, transdermal, or even intravaginal rings. We have low vaginal estrogen therapy, helps to maintain the pH and the mucosal health, the mucosa health of the vaginal canal or the cervix. We have osfemifene, which is an selective estrogen receptor modulator. Not a lot of people have really tried. It has been approved, of course. We know it has been approved. It helps in the vaginal anatomy to maintain the suppleness of it, because of menopause, the atrophy happens. But I don't know if it's really helpful. I haven't really heard promising effects of this. But testosterone therapy, though it is not FDA approved. In fact, I think the most latest research and the FDA guidelines came out, they have now started considering estrogen, low dose estrogen for a female. And I know once Dr. Jadhav was asking me, what about giving them to perimenopausal or even women who are in their 30s, 35? People have seen beneficial effect starting from mid 30s, starting them on low testosterone levels. In fact, hormonal therapy should be started for every women post their 30s, because there starts a decline in our hormones, right? Transdermal estrogen replacement and androgen therapy have been found to help in maintaining the hormonal balance, increasing the sex hormone binding globulin, reduce the bioavailable testosterone, improve the genital response, arousability, and helps in better sex. So vaginal moisturizers, uh, let's not diminish the power of vaginal moisturizers. Even with women, they are not perimenopausal, premenopausal, or menopausal. Vaginal moisturizers really play a very important role, giving that smooth effect and the smooth feeling. So vaginal moisturizers can be hormonal based or non-hormonal based, but they all should be used on regular basis, especially because we know as we grow older, even if by 25, 28, 30, 35, 30, our hormones are declining, right? Our biological clock is declining gradually. And that's where the dryness, the irritation, the cracking, the bleeding, the discomfort begins. And these, I was at a conference at Harvard Medical, and beautifully was said by Dr. Kelly Casperson. She says, we want to keep our face looking beautiful, use nice moisturizers and makeup and everything. We forget down there. We completely ignore the fact that that area also needs help. We are ready to put nice, heavy, expensive moisturizer on our body, perfumes, but go down the place which is so crucially important is being neglected. So vaginal moisturizers, hormonal based, non-hormonal based lubrication should be involved during sex pleasure and sexual activity. Now, so various pharmacological interventions we just talked about, but let's see. We have the DHEA, which is helpful in improving the libido, well-being among the postmenopausal women. We have flibanserin, guys. I know it's a big woo-hoo medication, which is being FDA approved for perimenopausal women who have low desire. Not, I've, as I told you, colleagues and friends haven't really given a real big green thumbs up for this medication. Uh, but again, I don't know whether it's available in India. It's available here, but again, we have seen mixed reviews. Women who have really benefited to women who have not benefited. But then you need to weigh with the side effects, which is severe hypotension and syncope, which can be very severe. We have bremelanotide, which is a melanocortin 4 receptor agonist. Again, it was FDA approved for increasing arousability and desire release. You, if it's available in India, you should try it. I haven't really tried it because I have so many other things I can work with the patient, but I have definitely tried PD5 inhibitors, low dose of tadalafil. Imagine if PD5 inhibitors can cause erection in men, increase the blood flow to the genitals. Why would the female be left behind? Even they have erectile tissues. So PD5 inhibitors can be used in females as well. We can definitely start with 2.5 on alternate days, go to 5 milligrams on regular basis. It helps in that erectile tissue. It helps in the engrossment, bringing the blood supply down there. We talked about the testosterone, which has recently FDA wants to do research in how they can start giving testosterone to women. And we have other medications like bupropion and trazodone, which come in the category of atypical antidepressant, but have shown to be beneficial in females who have sexual dysfunction. So we have bupropion, which is Wellbutrin, starting with 150 milligram, starting in the morning. It's usually because it activates a person. You don't want to give this person late in the night because they're not going to sleep well. So 150 in the morning. I usually prefer giving 300 also in the morning rather than separating them and giving them 2 times a day. But people do give them in the morning and afternoon on the evening. But do not give it in the late evenings because they can cause sleepy problems, sleepiness. We have sildenafil, which is Viagra, can be given to pair to women even if they are on SSRI and suffering with some type of sexual dysfunction. This can work like a miracle pill. Okay, transdermal testosterone is there. Um, let's let's skip this slide. This is this is flibanserin, and I've given the dosages. We have bremelanotide, which is given in the injection form, which is in a subcute injections. Again, I have not used it, so I cannot comment a lot and not really heard much happening. 12-week study of 5 milligrams of tadalafil to 32 female patients reported improvement in the quality of life. Look at that. Tadalafil improved the experience of sexual genital arousal and orgasm, sexual enjoyment, satisfaction by frequency of sexual activity, and frequency of sexual thoughts and fantasy was also improved in dyspareunia. So women who were suffering with the painful sex did also see the beneficial effect of 5 milligrams of tadalafil. Start giving them 2.5 on alternate days and see where that goes. We have Tibolone. I have never used it, but I know people, my colleagues in India, they really love using it and they've found beneficial effects. You guys can teach me how to use this. I will try it out, but I don't think so. It's available in the United States. I'm sure it's available in India because this is what is information given to me from my Indian colleagues and friends. Always and always, please see if there are comorbid conditions, complex comorbid condition, depression, bipolar, other medical problems, and please treat them accordingly because no matter what you do, if you do not treat the causes, the comorbid condition, your treatment is going to fail. So people say, like I had this I recently was supervising a OBGYN from India, and she started this patient on bupropion because she had low desire. But unfortunately, it turns out the husband is never really helping her to enjoy herself in an intimate time. He's all concerned about his pleasure. He comes, he goes, that's it. So she is definitely not interested in sex. So we started working with her. We put her on bupropion. Accidentally, I didn't see this physician for a month, but then she put this patient on sertraline. And of course, what is sertraline going to do? Affect the arousability. She's got, it, she's getting dryness. It, she started having low libido, all the more worsening symptoms. And then we had to stop sertraline and we had to continue the patient on bupropion and try other modalities. But guys, be very mindful. If it is not your specialization, please reach out to your colleagues who are psychiatrists and who know how to treat the mental health condition or psychological condition. So make sure the comorbid condition, whether it is medical conditions or psychological, are treated before you are treating, or at least simultaneously you're treating the comorbid condition and you're treating the sexual problem. So take home messages is this beautiful video, and I'm going to really scandalize you by this last video, which is so guys, this is a wonderful video which tells female that the pleasure is in your hand. As we know the anatomy of a female, the beautiful pearl, the powerhouse, the clitoris, and there is an entry point. We all know what is important for females to have pleasure. 80% of women do not get orgasm with penetrative sex. They need to be manually stimulated. So why not give that courage to our female patients that, hey, this is also what you can do. Of course, you want to be in the relationship. You also want to be part of this sexual, to and fro, lovely dynamic going on. But mainly, even teach the male partners, teach their partners how they can please their women. And trust me, with women, Dr. Rao always says, and I like that, and I'm going to tell you guys one thing. Women are like istris, like you plug in, you let them warm, and once they are warm, they are no turning back because they are nice, nice and hot, and they are now ready to give the effect they want. So it takes time, but the time is worth it. Female sexuality is multidimensional. It is not trait dependent, it is state dependent. Okay, it is response to how you treat your female, how their partners really value them, and that will cause a better intimate relationship than just, oh my god, this is probably she's never wanting to have sex. Desire in women is is often responsive, adaptive, situational, very rarely spontaneous. Okay, always incentive driven. Remember what I told you. It is not going to be spontaneous because that's not how women are. They need to be charged. Genital arousal does not equate to subjective arousal or consent or even psychological arousal, wanting to involve in sex. Effective management prioritizes reducing the inhibition, restoring safety through psychoeducation, pacing and contextual interventions before you try pharmacology. As I told you, pharmacology can play a very small role, but there's so much you can do with your patients. Thank you for your patient listening. Dr. Jadhav, I finished in time.
Thank you. It was a very wonderful talk. We really enjoyed it. I think there are questions in the chat box. Vaidehi,
Yes.
just a question.
You are not very much clearly audible, sir.
Vaidehi ma'am, please can you get the questions for Anita ma'am from the chat box?
Yes.
So the question
So the question here is, she is a 40-year-old female patient. She's actually a senior executive and in one corporate multinational company, but she reports no sexual interest despite being in a stable marriage. She works for almost 12 to 14 years daily and has to travel frequently because of her job commitments. She says by the end of the day, she feels like it's just another job or to-do list in her to-do sex. So, ma'am, in this case, how do you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, you have clues already in the history.
Yes.
The clues are in the history. She's always traveling. She's working for almost 14 hours or 15 hours in a day. There is no connection. It's a stable marriage, right? We're talking about stable marriage. What does stable marriage anywhere got to do with sex? Okay, it's a marriage. What is the relationship dynamics here? So the clue is already here that it's a stable marriage. It is not like we do not have much detail on whether it is a happy marriage. It is a fulfilling marriage. It is a relationship dynamics which is also involved. If the female is not there, 14 to 15 hours working, she goes back home. She's probably tired. She's not interested. She's like, and more than that, is she really having pleasure in this relationship? Is she having pleasure during sex? Is her pleasure being focused on? Those things are going to be very valuable in this history.
So, but ma'am, in this case, now being a senior executive officer in a good MNC, she has that barrier of not coming up with this type of to the psychologist or psychiatrist or to the sexologist with this type of complaints. So it's basically her husband who is suffering, silently suffering, but the couple is not able to approach.
Yes. So in that case, I think the lead has to be done from the patients. They need to approach. If the husband is suffering with sexual dysfunction, right? If he's suffering with, oh my God, sexual dissatisfaction, he needs to talk to the wife, and they both can then come to a clinician. But he himself cannot do anything. We can help him with some modalities.
In this case, now being it appears that she's a type A personality, right? So and it's very difficult to deal with such type of type A personalities as far as these problems are concerned. Counseling is also very difficult in such cases because they are not in that they are not at the receiving end to understand or accept the facts. So what is the role? How can we go along to counsel such type of couples?
So such type of couples, you cannot talk to the wife because she is not going to come. Is she willing to come for the therapy?
So it's very difficult. As I told, it's a type A personality, and type A personality would never want to accept their faults.
Correct. Then what can you do?
How if the husband comes to you, then how will you go about it?
If the husband comes to you, then you basically advise the husband to take a day out, or go on a vacation, or take time out and talk to his wife that this is how I'm suffering. I need to talk to you. We need to form this connection. This can only happen in this way, because even if you fix his erection, she is not available. Unless she is willing to put herself in this relationship and to make some changes, you cannot help. What are you going to help the husband with? The only thing is, yes, the husband can talk to her, express his desire, express his needs. Sometimes patients come to me. Sometimes patients come to me, and I have come across such patients. I mean, of course, women, once they come in authoritative position, it becomes very difficult for them. It's like, they feel threatened that, hey, how can I become vulnerable? So men come to me and they're like, ma'am, what do you think about open marriage? What do you think about me having a relationship outside? I'm like, I'm not here to judge. You do whatever suits you the best. But unless and until you bring your wife, or you both talk to each other, there's nothing anybody can do here.
Okay.
Sir, can we take more questions, sir?
Because we are already running late of time, and they have another session. So just you can finish up with the vote of thanks and get
So, ma'am, your take-home message is like you had a very wonderful bunches of lines. You said like pleasure is in your hand, is in the hand of the females, and the another punchline was they are like a press. So once they are warm, then nothing going back. So these are the very prominent punchlines, I think, as far as these female sexual functions are concerned. Then the other punchlines you said were the responsive, adaptive, situational, incentive driven. So females are always receptive, they're always responsive. And they have to be there. Of course, because being females, they are always to be given some incentives, but they're always responsive. And as you rightly said, so as we apply the moisturizers on the face, why are we forgetting those down below lanes where these things are actually required but are always neglected or forgotten? So I think these punchlines of your talk was the greatest take-home messages of the today's talk. And I think as we conclude this today's enriching session, I would like to express a sincere gratitude to Dr. Anita ma'am for the for the outstanding and the thought-provoking session on female sexual interest arousal disorder. Ma'am, I think your expertise and your number of cases you are handled in this field, and your clarity of thoughts, practical clinical insights, and the drugs which are available and which could be given to all such patients, I think they have got a better impact on this talk. And I would also like to extend our appreciation to Medisage for providing such an excellent academic platform. A special thanks, I should say, or a big lot of applause to our mentor, Dr. Neeraj sir, is here what is required, because it is his vision, dedication, and wonderful initiative in organizing such educational programs that address relevant and contemporary topics in healthcare. Sir, your efforts are really commendable and deeply appreciated, sir. My sincere gratitude to Dr. Sharma for her support, coordination, and contribution towards the successful conduct of this session. And I would also like to acknowledge all our participants. Thank you for taking time of your busy schedules to join us today, and your presence, enthusiasm, and learning experience. Learning is what we require today. Now, they say that knowledge grows when it is shared, and today's session was a wonderful example of that spirit. I'm sure each one of us is taking back valuable learning that will positively influence our clinical practice and patient care. So stay curious, keep learning, and continue making a difference in the lives of the patients we serve. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anitaji. Thank you, Vaidehi and Sama, for wonderfully moderating the session. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Great session.
Yeah, Diksha was behind me, just finished. So, sorry, Diksha, it was a little bit late, so we couldn't finish on time.
Diksha.
No issues, doctor. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Anita ma'am, once again.
Welcome, and thanks everybody for joining. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.